Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Get Frumpy Happy Hour with everybody's favorite frumpy broad and, of course, the beloved columnist, Marla Jo Fisher. I'm Sam Dunn. I'm the senior editor of premium content at the Southern California News Group. But most important, I'm a proud FOM, friend of Marla's. Thanks to our subscribers and attendees for making our virtual programs possible and so successful. And by the way, if you are a Reader Rewards subscriber attending tonight, you're automatically entered to win a $50 gift certificate from Fandango. Before we get started, I need to tell you all a few things. All of you in the audience are muted to allow for the free flow of conversation between Marla and her special guest, which I can't wait to share with you guys. If you have questions, and we hope you do, you can use the Q&A feature on the Zoom toolbar on your screen. And if you just want to add a comment or talk to other people in the chat, use the chat feature found also on your Zoom toolbar. I'm going to be monitoring questions and comments and pass them along to Marla and her guest as much as possible. Just so you know, this session will be videotaped and a link will be sent to you after the fact so you can revisit some of your favorite moments. It's also posted at scng.com/virtual events, and it's also on our SCNG YouTube channel. Now, without further ado, let me welcome the reason for the season, Marla Jo Fisher, our longtime columnist and author of Frumpy Middle-Aged Mom, Dispatches from the Front Lines of Motherhood. Hey, Marla, where are you?
Hey, I'm like strangely, am I on now?
Yeah, you're on.
Oh, okay. Hi. Okay, somehow I accidentally ended up in safe driving mode, but I'm not driving, so, and it's a good thing I'm not driving because here we are, it's happy hour and I've got my wine with my vintage 1956 collection, which was my birthday, so my friend sent me this for my birthday. And this week it's brought to you by Sycamore Lane, a bottle I found in the cupboard that I have no idea how it got there, nor do I know anything about it, but it's a cab for those who care. And
I'm going to get out of here so I can go drink my non-alcoholic boring drinks. Have fun.
Thank you. Bye-bye, Sam.
Bye.
All right. So what I want to talk to you about is my guest today. But first, I got to show you something. Okay. When I was getting ready for this Zoom session, which basically consists of combing my hair and putting on lipstick. Are you excited? Look what I found. Scissors. If you are a reader, you know there are never any scissors to be found anywhere in my house. And I'm always blaming my children. And I'm accusing my children of having like hundreds of scissors in the floor of their room. But I found these underneath my stuff. So just do me a favor. Do not tell my children, okay? And the other thing that's exciting is that I also managed to find this that I've been looking for forever. My three book set, boxed set of Marcel Proust, Remembrance of Things Past. And the reason that I found it is I was trying to shove it under my computer for you guys to just to raise the computer, because that's really the only thing it's good for, is putting under stuff, because let's face it, I'm never going to read Proust. But so if anybody wants a copy of this, let me know. I'll be happy to ship it over to you, and then you'll probably die. But the reason that the reason that I'm here today is because I want to introduce you to a friend of mine, Dusty Sage. And he is a blogger for one of the premier Disney blogs. It's called Mice Chat. And if you're a Disney head, which some of you probably are and many of you are not, then you already know about Mice Chat and you already rely on it for all the top news of everything that's going on in Disneyland. And when I was asked to start covering Disneyland a few years ago, I hadn't done it for a really long time. I didn't know what I was doing. And so I met Dusty at an event and asked him to help me. And he's one of those guys, you can walk around the park with him and you can point at a rock on the ground and say, hey, Dusty, tell me about that rock. And he would tell you the whole story of the rock, where it came from, who painted it, how it got there. And just generally, he knows everything about Disneyland, probably as much as anyone who even works there, I would venture to suggest. And so that is why I've invited him to come on here, aside from the fact that he's very handsome and, you know, I just like to look at him. So are you there, Dusty? I don't know. I'm still seeing Sam on here. So
I'm
now,
here. I'm here. Can you see
hi,
me,
hi.
Marla?
And the exciting thing about this is that Dusty is actually at Disneyland right now. I know some of you are like, wait, did Disneyland reopen? And yes, Disneyland is open now. And Dusty is there right now because he was covering the Halloween hoopla that's about to start there. And what's amusing about that is most of us are going like, wait, it's Labor Day, but in the world of Disneyland, it's Halloween, right? So
Right.
yeah, so they started their Halloween hoopla today. So he's over there covering all the exciting. What did you show me some of the stuff that you brought over today? Okay,
Well,
so
Marla, first of all, thank you for having me. It's wonderful. But some of the things I found today were this Mickey Mummy macaroon with cookies and cream filling. Huh? I've been
how
trying not to eat this for hours as I'm looking at this, getting ready for your show. And of course, because you had a drink, and Disneyland is a dry park. You know, it's very hard to get a drink. We can talk about that in a little bit, but I did find this delicious watermelon lemonade freeze. And look at this like day glow pink topping on it.
what is that?
Well, it's the day glow that makes it good, Marla.
Okay, well,
And
that's my important question to you is, do you have a flask with a little vodka to put in that? Because that would make it really good.
if I were thinking, and I'm not a thinking man, I would have brought a flask.
Or you go to the park and then I'll clue you in on
Yeah, you need to make a trip down here real quick. And this is, of course, the Jack Skellington popcorn bucket. So you eat the popcorn right out of his brain.
Oh my God. Oh my God.
Huh?
Okay, so how much does that thing cost? Like 25 bucks?
It's all a lot of money, Marla.
Yeah.
If you're asking how much something costs at Disneyland, you can't afford to come.
Well, let me just tell you, I got to explain this to you, okay? If you're a Disney head, then you already know the stuff. And we love you, Disney heads, because you keep us in business, right? And Disney loves you, Disney heads, more than anything. If you're not a Disney head, you may be rather astonished to know that people will drive from Ontario and stand in line all day just to get one of those popcorn buckets. And here's the funny thing. They never put popcorn in it because putting popcorn in it would sully the wonderfulness of this collectible. So the objective is to buy the popcorn bucket without the popcorn and pay
And then
$25.
find a place to put it in their house.
Exactly, which is already full of popcorn buckets. Now, let me just tell you this, okay? I love you crazy Disney people. I love you. And so if I make fun of you, it's the gentle fun that mothers make of their children, okay? Because the one thing I really love about you is that if you're crazy enough to stand in line for 10 hours to get a popcorn bucket, you have a sense of humor. And one of the fun things covering Disneyland is covering people who will, drive all day long to stand in line to buy a $12 candy cane at Christmas and then drive all the way back up to Woodland Hills to go to work, and it takes a special kind of person to do that. And I know you people, I mean, you're my neighbors and you're my friends. My friend who I won't mention, but she's a somewhat important person in Orange County, she slept on the floor of the Anaheim Convention Center just so she could get into the Disney fan club convention and buy a Disney purse, like a limited edition Disney purse. Now, there's really probably nothing that could get me to sleep on the floor of the Anaheim Convention Center, except maybe Jerry Garcia back from the dead. But, thousands of you did this, right? And I love you because you're a constant source of amusement. So if we make fun of Disneyland and we make fun of you specifically, and you know who you are, then please take it with the humor that with which it's intended, because, not everyone loves Disneyland, but most people do love Disneyland and they want to go there. And that is why the Walt Disney Company makes pots and pots of money. So we're now about to say insulting things about Disneyland, and I'm warning you about that. So that is why I made this big thing saying, like, we love Disneyland, but Disney controls its image so thoroughly that no one ever says anything bad about it. So that's why it's kind of fun to, diss it a little bit, right? Right, Dusty?
Well, your disclaimer was excellent, but I will say most Disney fans know that everyone else thinks they're crazy. And,
right.
if your work cubicle is papered with Mickey Mouse calendars and Coke bottles from Disneyland and cups and popcorn buckets, people know you're nuts, and you know you're nuts, and it's okay. You have to sometimes fly your freak flag. So love the things you love, people.
You know, when you live in Southern California, pretty much everybody has that one person at work, right? You know, I've had so many people tell me like, oh yeah, I'm the crazy Disney lady at work. And everybody knows I'm the crazy Disney lady, you know, for exactly what you said, right? Your cubicle is covered with Disney stuff and you wear Disney clothes, you know? And you have Disney like circled Disney events. Oh yeah, yeah. So you have, you know, you have Disney events circled on your calendar and paying vast sums of money to go to special
Yes.
event. When does the Mickey's Halloween party start?
It starts next weekend. So on the 9th, the new Oogie Boogie party. It used to be Mickey's Halloween party at Disneyland. They've moved it to California Adventure, and now it is Oogie Boogie's party. But today was the official start of Halloween. So today, all of the Halloween ride overlays, like Haunted Mansion Holiday and the 2 ride overlays in Cars Land, that all started today. So a lot of fun stuff happening here, starting right now.
So it's 1 million degrees, but that's okay because it's
It
still
was so hot, Marla. It was so hot today. I have to tell you, it's much cooler right now, and I'm in a kind of windy, you know, nice breeze blowing spot. But I thought I would melt earlier.
You know, if you're going to go to Disneyland, people, you just have to be aware that Anaheim, like inside the park, it's always 10 degrees hotter than it is outside, just because of all the pavement, you know? So when you're planning on what to wear, but then it gets cold at night, right? So when you're planning on, you always need to layer people. So one of the things that I interesting that Disney heads all know, but average people like the rest of us do not know, is that there's a secret club inside Disney. And
What?
club, yes, they don't advertise it, they don't publicize it. I suppose if you called them up and asked them, they would admit its existence. But this club is called Club 33, and it's on Royal Street, right? It's on Royal Street. It's in New Orleans. Okay.
That's right.
And it's completely unmarked door. You would walk right past it. You would never look at it twice. But behind that door, so many people covet the opportunity to go behind that door and see what's there. Have you ever been behind the door, Dusty?
Marla, it's all true. Club 33 is the most exclusive space in any theme park anywhere in the world. And you can't buy a ticket into Club 33. You have to be invited by a member. And even the whole story on how somebody becomes a member is just, it's shrouded in mystery. And I have been up there, and I know you have as well. It's gorgeous. It's upstairs above Pirates of the Caribbean. And it looks like a gorgeous New Orleans supper club and a new section, a lounge there that looks like a jazz club. And it's ornate with exquisite food and very expensive drinks. And that's the sign of a quality establishment.
They do have a very nice back bar. And the people who work there are very nice because I think they pick like the best people in the park, you know, to work in there. And I'm sure they get really good tips.
Oh, for sure. They're an awesome staff. And the members are the who's who of Los Angeles. So lots of stars and lawyers and billionaires and millionaires. So you have to be somebody or know somebody who's somebody to get into Club 33. And
here's the thing, you can't just buy a membership, even if you had pots and pots of money. I mean, you have to get on a right. Although I don't know, with all the changes right now, do you think there even is a waiting list?
Yes, I think the story is, and with all things Disney, there's the story and then there's reality, and you never really know what's what. But the story is, you know, sometimes you'll hear, well, there's a 20-year waiting list for Club 33, or there's a 14-year waiting list for Club 33. But the one thing we do know is the day they call you and say, congratulations, you get to be a Club 33 member, they want all of the money right away. And it's a lot of money. So most people have to turn them down. So it is a long list, but it's also very, very expensive.
So it's tens of thousands of dollars, right? I mean, it depends on the you have, right?
That's right. I think it's tens of thousands of dollars and probably well over $25,000, probably over $33,000 for your first year to join. And then there's annual dues. So it costs a lot of money to be able to drink at Disneyland, which is why I am sticking to the watermelon lemonade freeze.
So what, why does Club 23 exist, do you think?
Well, Walt in the early days had a lot of things in the park sponsored. So a lot of the shops on Main Street USA had sponsors. There was the Wizard of Bras, who sold women bras. There was a hardware store, a drugstore. And then over the years, Walt was asked to do things to help bring more sponsors into the park. And the idea was that if they built a really fancy establishment where he could wine and dine potential sponsors, they could keep current sponsors happy and bring in new sponsors. But sadly, Marla, Walt passed away just months before the opening of Club 33 and all of New Orleans Square. So he did get to see the construction on Pirates of the Caribbean, but he never got to see it open. He never got to see Haunted Mansion opened, and he never got to see his Club 33.
So what, I'll tell you one thing. Having been there, when I talk to people about having been there, because it's like a secret thing, you're not supposed to take pictures of it or videos or, talk about it because, it's Club 33. And so one of the things is that I went into the bathroom and everybody's like, have you been in the bathroom? Have you been in the bathroom? And okay, here's the deal. You go in the bathroom and it's kind of a Victorian style, like Victorian style on steroids. And there's a faint couch there. So just in case you walk in and you feel the need to faint at the sight of gold colored swan fountains in the bathroom and, hand painted sinks, then you have something to faint on. And they even give this, yes, they even give you those fancy napkins that are almost kind of a cross between paper napkins and hand towels with the Club 33 logo on it. And the first time I went, somebody was like, well, did you get a napkin? Like, no, I dried my hands with it and threw it away. And they're like, you have to get a napkin. So
sacrilege, Marla, sacrilege.
I did bring a napkin home. So if you're, lucky enough to get a napkin, I'm not really sure what I'm supposed to do with this thing. I guess it's yet another fabulous collector's item that I will own until I die.
That's
but
right.
I got a napkin from the bathroom at Club 33, just in case you want to worship me. So I wanted to talk to you about something else, and I actually wrote a story about this. Is there something even more exclusive than Club 33?
That's right, there is.
Yes, that is.
Something that instead of there being 100 people up there, there's only 10 people up there.
And this thing is called 21 Royal. And if you just inherited pots and pots of money, or you won the lottery, or you just have no sense whatsoever, you can actually spend, oh my gosh, I've forgotten how much it is some absolutely obscene amount of money just to have dinner there for one night, one single night.
It's about $12,000 to $15,000 for a party of, I believe it's 10. But Marla, this isn't just a dinner. It's a once in a lifetime experience. So I was lucky enough to be in the very first seating at 21 Royal several years ago. And I'm just going to briefly explain it to you, and I think you'll understand. It's sort of like taking a trip, but all in one night and through courses of dinner. But you arrive at the beautiful Grand Californian Hotel at the fireplace, and a Disneyland tour guide meets you and walks you to the front of Main Street USA, where you get on board Walt's private rail car, which is the Lily Bell, at the Main Street station. And you take the Lily Bell all the way to New Orleans Square, where you walk up the front steps to the Dream Suite, which is just above Pirates of the Caribbean. You know those two stairs that go up to that beautiful suite that you always wondered what's up there? Well,
Yeah.
In there is something called the Dream Suite, and it's Walt's private apartment. And sorry, you'll have to forgive me. One of my earbuds just popped out of my ear. But that's Walt's private rooms. So he had his bedroom there, kids' room, a living room, and in the back, there's a back patio. But next to that was Walt's private dining room, 21 Royal. And 21 Royal can be rented out. And You get to go into the Dream Suite, have some drinks, and then they call you in for dinner in 21 Royal. And it's multi-courses, and they're all exquisite. And it's not a regular menu. They quiz you before you ever go on what your favorite trip was, what your favorite bottle of wine was, what's your favorite color, you know, what's your favorite painting. And then they create a menu based on you. And just before Fantasmic starts, they call you out onto the balcony and you watch Fantasmic from this balcony up above the crowds. It's the most perfect view of Fantasmic. You get to watch fireworks, and then you go back in, have your main course, dessert, and it's just extraordinary evening. So dinner starts around 5 p.m. You'll have to excuse the noise. That's the train going by, Marla, Disneyland Railroad. And the boat is whistle behind me. So lots of action here at Disneyland right now. So the dinner starts at about 5 p.m. and it ends around 1 a.m. So that's quite an evening and very special, beautiful location, and just for you and your friends for a lot of money.
Okay, so if you're watching this right now and you have $12,000 that you have absolutely nothing to do with it, feel free to invite me to go to 21 Royal, because trust me, and Dusty too, and trust me, that's the only way that we'll ever get into 21 Royal, because you know I'm a journalist and you know I make $4 an hour by the time I don't really make $4 an hour, but you know,
yeah,
we're not.
I've already sold my kidneys. I've sold all the organs I can afford to sell, Marla. So now when I want to go do Disney things, I actually have to save up for them.
Okay, one of my readers asked me to ask you, and I did mention that I already wrote a story about this, but you know, she wanted me to ask you anyway about the Disneyland Cats. And here's my question to you. What is it with people when they spend $100 to go to a theme park and then they spend the whole time looking around for feral cats? I mean, can't you find feral cats in your alley right now? I mean, what is it about these cats? Just for people who don't know, okay, there's cats at Disneyland and they keep them around to eat the mice and so forth. And like, there's people that are like obsessed with seeing the cats. They have their own Instagram page. They have their own Facebook. I mean, they have their own website. And it just blows my mind that people, you know, are obsessed with Disneyland Cats. Have you ever seen
They've
one?
always been there. Cats have been there since the very earliest days. And of course, you know, a lot of Disneyland is got plants and trees and shrubbery, and there's big open spaces on Tom Sawyer's Island and surrounding the railroads. And the cats really do help keep the Mickey Mouse problem in check. But there are all sorts of animals at Disneyland. There are fish in some of the waterways that we've seen, turtles, lots of birds. In fact, the crows are a problem at times because a murder of crows will take off from the trees and there's 200 or 300 birds and they poop all over the guests sometimes. So lots of animals at Disneyland. But yeah, people enjoy seeing the cats, I think, because you think of Disneyland as being fake. It's a manufactured place. And so you expect that everything at Disneyland is a robot. And people will even say, is that real or is that a robot? Is that an animatronic? Well, the cats are real. And I think people just enjoy seeing a little bit of reality in the happiest place on earth.
Well, you know, it always cracks me up when people just go on and on about the ducks, right? Because there's water, right? So there's, you know, if you might have seen the ducks kind of wandering around trying to get nibbles while you're sitting at a waterfront restaurant, you know, and people are like, oh, ducks.
Ducks. And Marla, when there are baby ducks, people lose their minds. The little tiny baby ducks all walking in a line down Main Street, USA, or crossing over to get to the river, and people will run and they'll push you out of the way to go see the baby ducks.
You know, speaking of ducks, okay, there was a time, the Incredicoaster, which I'm sure most of you know, used to be called California Screamin' over at California Adventure. And there was an accident there, a minor accident. Fortunately, no one was killed or anything, but it made me curious about what kind of accidents are there. So I went to the state agency that regulates these theme parks and I asked them for copies of all the accident reports on California Screamin'. Now, let's just say it took them so long to give me these reports that by the time they finally gave me the reports, it wasn't even California Screamin' anymore. It was now the Incredicoaster. So I felt like I was reading these reports for nothing, so, but I still read them anyway because it was amusing. Oh, hang on, somebody's texting me while I'm trying to do this. Anyway, okay, so I'm reading these reports and, they're actually really funny, and I'm sorry I never wrote a story about it. There was, the woman whose, phone battery exploded and caught on fire while she was on the ride, and lots of people who like had panic attacks on the ride. I mean, I'm sorry, but if you're going on does it not occur to you that if you go on a roller coaster, it might be anxiety producing, which is why I don't personally go on roller coasters. And then there was the one, my personal favorite of all the accidents I found on there was the woman who had a duck fly into her face while she was on the ride, and hopefully she wasn't seriously injured, because I think while you're on that ride and a duck flies into your face, that could really hurt you, right?
Yeah, it could. You know what else could hurt you, Marla? If a duck catches fire and lands on you. And that happened as well at Disneyland. When Fantasmic first started, the ducks, the animal life around Disneyland, didn't know what to expect. Fantasmic had never happened before. And in part of Fantasmic, they light the river on fire, but the river usually had a lot of ducks in it. And one of the ducks caught fire and took off and flew into the audience and landed a flaming duck right there on a tourist. So there are a lot of duck stories. In fact, I shouldn't say my favorite duck story, but it's one of the stories that I can't get out of my head. One morning I was shooting Disneyland, and I try to go as early as I can before the park gets crowded, and the baby ducks had just been born, and adorable baby ducks going through. And this little girl goes down to the ground to look at this baby duck, and a giant hawk swooped down and picked up the baby duck and flew away with it. And I heard the little girl scream, and the mother started, and a cast member came over, and the mother yelled at the cast member and said, "Why do you let the birds eat the baby ducks?" And I just remember thinking it was the circle of life. I don't know if that cast member could have done anything to keep that hawk from eating that baby duck.
Oh
but
gosh.
I can't get that. I think about it every year when I see the baby ducks. I think about that poor little girl, and I hope she turned out okay.
Oh, I wouldn't be surprised if the woman sued, because everybody seems to sue Disneyland for everything,
Oh yeah, they complain if the weather's too hot, they'll go to guest relations and complain that Disney had the weather too hot.
Right? Yeah. I mean, at one point I went through the Cal OSHA records just to look at what kind of bizarre accidents happen in Disneyland. Of course, they don't want you to know that any accidents ever happen there. Right.
Right.
But it was fascinating because you've got, 200-pound snowflakes like plummeting to the ground, during stage shows, and all these bizarre things that would not be bizarre except that they happen at Disneyland, because everything that happens there is bizarre. And, Disney does their very best, because they're such canny business people. They do their very best to keep anybody from knowing anything bad ever happens there.
That's right. They want people to think Disneyland is perfect. So the idea of Disneyland was that you would leave your troubles of the real world behind and enter this land of fantasy where everything's perfect. So one of the worst things that could ever happen in a perfect place like that would be, of course, for someone to die. And in the 66 years that Disneyland has been around, there have been quite a few people who have died at Disneyland, but Disney always manages to make sure that the coroner always declares them dead after their bodies leave the resort. So it doesn't matter if it's a cast member whose head is decapitated in a revolving building, or a guest who jumps out of a vehicle on the people mover and then gets smeared on the beam. Those people all actually died outside the park, Marla.
No one has ever died at Disneyland, Dusty. Don't you know that? Right? Absolutely
And
no
I
one.
shouldn't ruin the magic like that.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. I'm a big chicken. That's why it's hilarious, because people will say to me, they're like, "You're so lucky to cover Disneyland." And I am lucky. I truly am lucky. And Disneyland is a fabulous, many splendored place to work. But it's a bizarre place for me to work, because I get motion sick And I'm a big weenie and I get scared to death on all those rides. I mean, we had annual passes when my kids were little and I would just send them on all those rides, right? I'm like, Mommy will be sitting right here and you go on the Matterhorn. And when you get off the Matterhorn, Mommy will be right here waiting for you, right? And on the extremely rare occasions that they browbeat me into coming on with them, they would always want to sit in the front row. And having covered enough accidents at Disneyland, I would always be like the one going like, no, you can't sit in the front row.
That's the decapitation row.
Like, no, right? And they would be like, Mommy, what are you talking about? And I'm like, no. So, yeah.
This is why you don't want your mother to be a reporter.
Exactly. So I'm really, now,
guys.
Yes.
Yes, Samantha.
Oh, speaking of rides, I am just cutting in. I'm sorry, since we're speaking about rides, we have a question from one of our audience members, and they want to know what two questions. They want to know what the best way is to get on the new Star Wars ride, and is there a way to visit the Disney estate?
Well,
perfect.
I'm thrilled to hear about both of those questions. Marla, do you mind if I field this one?
Go for it, Bo.
The best way to get on Rise of the Resistance right now, and for those of you who aren't aware, it's the big new Star Wars ride. It's maybe the best ride ever created by Disney or any theme park company. Whole experience from end to end takes about 20 minutes. It's spectacular, but you have to wake up at 7 a.m. and press a button at just the right 10th of a second in order to get a boarding pass for the ride later in the day. Well, they've recently changed that procedure so that half of the availability is at 7 a.m. So you still have to go through that procedure, crack of dawn. But the other half comes available at noon. And during the week, when Disneyland isn't as busy, it can take sometimes an hour or 2 hours before all those spots get filled up. So it's very, very important to ride, and you haven't been on it yet, visit Disneyland on a weekday. After you have gotten to the park at noon, you can check in the app and try to get a boarding pass at noon, but you shouldn't have as much trouble. So that's the big tip. If you go on a weekend, it still books up instantly. And when I say instantly, I mean not even a second to book every single spot for an entire day. So it's tough to get on that one.
If you haven't been to Disneyland, you really need to download the app. Okay, the official app. It's very, very useful to you in so many ways. So make sure you download the app. And by the way, if you're not up at 7 getting ready to go to Disneyland, then my friend, you might as well just go back to bed and save yourself $100 because you're not going to have the world's greatest experience. But okay, before Dusty talks about Walt's storybook mansion, let me just mention that the man who's sitting in front of me, who I think we just heard the train whistle go by, became obsessed with Disneyland when he was a little tiny little tot in Kansas, never been to Disneyland, and was obsessed with it, and wrote letters about it and wrote stories about it, wrote essays about it, and did everything in the world, and finally got to go to Disneyland. And fast forward 20 years later, because of course you're only 27, 20 years later he's now a famous blogger. And one of the things that he did was get Walt's birthplace preserved in Chicago, right?
That's right. Yeah, so some years ago we found out that Walt's birthplace was in jeopardy of being lost forever, and it's very important to the Disney story. I mean, everybody sees Disneyland, you think of Walt Disney as this very successful man, but he is the American dream story. He was born very poor in Chicago, Illinois, 7 Disney family members all living together in a tiny little 2-bedroom house. And flash forward, he achieves this great success with Mickey Mouse and the movies, and really inventing animation long form movies with Snow White in 1937. But in 1932, Walt found out that his wife was pregnant, Lily, and he needed a house to raise a family, especially since the house that he had been raised in had so many people in it. And he had a little bit of money from the Silly Symphonies and Fantasia. And he built this gorgeous house in the Hollywood Hills that looks like a little castle up on the hill. It's stunning, and it still exists to this day. And it's really my honor to be able to help preserve and schedule events and things at Walt's Storybook Mansion in the Hollywood Hills. It's really the bookend of Walt's life, starting off so poor. And really people would think that a child like Walt probably wouldn't have much opportunity, but he ended up becoming one of the most famous men who ever lived. And really, if you think about the Disney name, there are probably more people in this world that know the Disney name than just about any other name that there is. So I really love telling that story to people up at the house and showing them the success that Walt achieved, knowing where he came from.
And so where can people go and see the house?
They can. It is owned by somebody, so it's a private home. But generally, once or twice a month, there's an opportunity for something. I like to give tours up there at least once a month, and then we do like to make the house available for rentals, for weddings and special dinners, anniversary dinners, and book events. We've had several authors, many of them Disney-related authors, up there at the house doing various things. So your best bet to see the house is to follow a Facebook page. It's Walt Disney Storybook Mansion. And if you follow the Walt Disney Storybook Mansion webpage, I always list the events as they happen. And we have a tour coming up later this month. It hasn't been announced yet. So I'll try and get that announced by tomorrow, or at least by the end of the weekend, so that those of you watching this will have the first opportunity to get your hands on a tour if you'd like. And then going into October, we will talk about kind of a little bit of a spooky side to the house, and Los Feliz, where the house is located, is a very haunted place. And we'll be doing some candlelight ghost tours of the house. So that's really not so much about Walt as it is about the neighborhood and its historic stories.
Wait, I want to do a candlelight ghost tour.
You have to, Marla. You have to come and see the house.
Well, naturally, you would do something spooky like that because, Dusty, if you don't know, I mean, he doesn't just write about Disneyland. He writes about Knott's, he writes about the Halloween haunts, and he writes about all different kinds of theme parks. So, of course, he's got to find some kind of, angle to get spookiness in there, right?
That's right.
Well, one of the things.
You guys, speaking of spooky, sorry, we have one more reader question for you, or audience question for you. This is to Dusty. Any historical information on the horse-drawn hearse in front of the haunted mansion, or is it only a prop?
Well, folks like to tell stories about it, and especially at this time of year, Halloween. And folks say that it's the hearse of who was the leader of the Mormons? Is it John Smith or Joseph Smith, right? And a lot of people will say it's his hearse. It isn't, actually. It is an antique that Disney purchased, and the Disney company buys lots of props for all sorts of things. So a lot of the props that you see around Big Thunder are actually from old mines and things. And then many things are reproductions. And a lot of times when Disney buys something that's an antique, they will later take it to Imagineering and reproduce it so that they can have something just like it forever. So the hearse itself is just a prop. The Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs statues at the Wishing Well were given as a gift and are now just reproductions of the original gift. But almost all of the Disneyland style parks around the world now have that same statue because it's been cast by Imagineering and put in other places. So lots of things like that in the Disney parks.
I do have to say that I've only been to Imagineering. The actual Imagineering headquarters where they design all this stuff and create all this stuff is in Glendale, of all the bizarre places. And no disrespect to you if you live in Glendale, but it's just interesting to think that this massive hub of creativity is in Glendale. So, but it is a fascinating place to go there, and they're doing all kinds of gee whiz things there, and they're always coming up with new stuff that's amazing. And I don't even know why I brought that up, but I did get a tour of it, and then you go through, and then there's all these just incredible archival heirloom type items there that you would never imagine even existed or still existed after all this time. That was really quite a treat to go. But one thing I want to talk about, because this is for the person who doesn't necessarily go to Disneyland all the time, because you have your fans who are your Disney heads who go onto micechat.com, and they are endless consumers of Disneyland information. So they know so much about how to go to these days, right? But for your average person who's like, wait, is Disneyland open? Or wait, I I think I might want to take my kid to Disneyland someday, you know? So for those kind of people, what do you tell them about what's going on at Disneyland now? I mean, is it worth going to Disneyland? Because it used to be so crowded that it was actually unbearable. And
So,
how much does it cost? And is it even worth going there?
well, it's a great question because, and I've thankfully got a good answer for you. Just before the shutdown of our world, Disneyland was an incredibly expensive place to visit that was almost always packed. And because of the number of pass holders that were estimated to be over 1 million pass holders, the park was crowded even in the off season. So in the old days when I was a kid, if you wanted to visit Disneyland when it wasn't crowded, you could go just after the first of the year until spring break. It would be dead. There was a period after summer when kids went back to school where it would be very uncrowded. And it was really only busy at summer and at Christmas and then at spring break. But that all changed and the park got busier and busier and busier as more and more pass holders came in. That flash forward to the pandemic, and Disney decided that when the parks reopened, they would be at limited capacity. They wouldn't be able to service 1 million pass holders no matter what they did. So they canceled the pass program and gave everybody their money back, or whatever portion of their pass they hadn't used, they gave that back. And so when the parks reopened, there were no pass holders, and it was lovely. So people could buy a ticket. They did not raise the prices. The prices were the same ticket range that they were in 2019, but they weren't as crowded. And it was great, but very expensive. And for somebody like me who has to go to the park frequently to take pictures for my blog, I just about went broke. So now the pass program is back. And it's different this time around, Marla, because now you have to make a reservation to visit the parks. And Disney has capped the maximum number of people that can visit Disneyland in a single day. And the good news and bad news is you have to think in advance and schedule your visit in advance. So that's the bad news. But the good news is the park really isn't all that crowded. So yeah, it gets busier especially on weekends, but on weekdays in the off season, you can still have a very enjoyable, not very busy day. And even on the very busiest days, it's capped in the total attendance. So you'll never see one of those shoulder to shoulder, I can't move down Main Street days again, at least not in the foreseeable future. So it's really good news. Still expensive, so you have to save up for your Disney trip, folks. But if you can afford to go, I'd say now is still a pretty good time to go. And today, first day of Halloween, you'd expect to be packed, and it's lovely. The crowd levels were very enjoyable today. So I'd say it's still a good time to visit. COVID safety, for those of you worried about, COVID, et cetera, masks required indoors. They're optional outdoors, but they request that people that are unvaccinated wear masks even outdoors. And if you are concerned about COVID, you should be aware of that. It's still busy, people touching things, et cetera. So keep that in mind. And I think that's one of the reasons why it's not packed.
But you don't have to be vaccinated to go there.
You don't. You don't have to be vaccinated to go, but they require everyone to be masked indoors, and outdoors, unvaccinated, they request are masked even outdoors. But how do they police that? So they don't.
Right. I mean, it's just too many people for them to do that. So,
right.
So, one of the things that, you and I, we started talking about this Disney Genie thing, okay? Because those of you who've been to the park and you know what fast passes are, where you could go and get a pass, so you could essentially have an appointment to cut the line, at the most popular rides. But there are no more fast passes. Fast passes are gone. I mean, no free fast pass. So they replaced it with a program called Disney Genie, right?
That's right. It hasn't launched yet, and we don't know when the start date is. But it will replace Fast Pass, Marla, except you'll have to pay for it. So there will be no more free Fast Passes, but you can pay $20 for Disney Genie. And most of the rides that offer Fast Pass will be available on Disney Genie. And for your $20, you can ride those rides. As soon as you finish riding one of them, you can make an appointment to do your next one over and over and over again all day. However, there are going to be some rides that are very popular that have another fee on top of that. And that's called the Lightning Lane. And we don't know what that's going to cost, but it could be expensive. We don't know. But we expect rides like Rise of the Resistance and the new Spider-Man ride and Indiana Jones to be the type of rides that they might charge a little extra for.
Well, see, this is all a new world for me because, I'm no longer, my kids don't want to have anything to do with me, right? Because they're adults now. So I'm no longer taking my kids to theme parks, right? So this is an all new world. I mean, when I went to, the haunted event at Knott's, and you had to pay extra to go to cut to the front of the maze, I was amazed because this is an all new world. This is a whole new world for me, right? But let
Yes.
me tell you this, okay? If you are spending $150 for a ticket, go to Disneyland, and you're spending another 25 or 30 to park. All right, if you're hearing Lil Wayne barking, I don't know, probably the mailman is here. So just try to blot him out of your mind for right now. Okay. Hey, shut up. So he never listened to me. Amazing I was able to raise children because I certainly can't train a dog. Okay, so if you're spending a small fortune basically to go to Disneyland for the day, I mean, you're going to spend $500 if you go with a family just to walk in the door. Okay. So,
Yes.
and then we're not even talking about food or treats or, souvenirs or anything like that. So in my mind, anything you can do for a small amount of money that's going to improve that experience, I would do it. And nobody paid me to say that, it's just that because I don't want to stand in line, I just hate. So
Speaking of which, you guys, we have a question for both of you from Jan Myers, who says she hasn't been to Disneyland in years. She has no kids or grandkids. The husband won't go. Would it still be fun, she wants to know, for a person 65 years or older to visit? And also, besides the resistance, what should be her priorities if she does visit?
Well, I have to say yes. I visit Disneyland alone frequently. I have to tell you, it's a little nicer when you're not with the kids and the family because it's always a struggle of what ride are we going to go to? I don't want to wait for that, or I want to ride this. But when you're there by yourself, you can spend more time people watching, enjoying peaceful rides like the Mark Twain riverboat, the train, eating in a nice restaurant. And it's really quite lovely. And you'd be surprised. I would guess as many as a quarter of the visitors at the park on some days are by themselves, and quite a lot of older visitors as well. So yes, I'd say make it a priority to visit Disneyland. Pick a day that's not too hot and enjoy yourself. Do the things you want to do. And the priorities would be the take it easy sort of rides. You can absolutely ride anything you want, and many of the rides have single rider lines. So you can skip the queue and go ask if there's a single rider line on many attractions such as Splash Mountain and Indiana Jones sometimes, where you can just avoid the queue, you enter through the exit and they put you into the empty seats. So you're actually doing Disney a favor when you come by yourself and you enter the single rider line, and the advantage to you is short waits and a lovely day.
Okay, I gotta say that as a person who's a big weenie and doesn't like scary rides, I can really enjoy going by myself. And the thing is I go on I'm going the total weenie stuff. Pirates of the Caribbean at this point, very old ride, and I never get tired of it. I mean, it's really
Lovely.
Go on, and it's a perfect ride to go on a hot day, right? Because you're indoors, it's cool, water, and so there's certain rides like that I will always enjoy. And as you said, I mean, there's very few places except maybe Vegas where the people watching is better than it is at Disneyland. It's just fun to sit and watch people do crazy things.
I like to sit in a spot like where I am right now and just watch the boats go by and enjoy the scenery and the weather, the breeze, and get a snack. No food has calories. Did you know this, Marla? At Disneyland, the calories don't count. So you can eat as many churros and ice cream sundaes as you want. Unlimited popcorn, 0 calories. You won't gain a pound.
I've heard that. I've also heard that, the money that's spent isn't real money.
That's true too.
Right.
And yes, what I do is when my credit card fills up, I just throw it away and stop thinking about it.
One thing I'll tell you, okay, this is just an actual tip, right? And if you take kids to Disneyland, or even your husband or your wife, you need to set a budget and you need to say, okay, kids, you can spend $25. Or you actually give them $25, right? And say, here's your budget for the day. You spend it however you want. If you want to buy a balloon, buy a balloon. If you want whatever you want, here's your $25. If you need to buy an overpriced popcorn bucket, buy an overpriced popcorn bucket. But
That's right.
keep it in your budget. How spending it however you want to spend it. And then that way you don't have the constant like tugging, right? Like, Mom,
Yes.
can I have that? You know, and it works really well. And
They have these bubble wands right now, Marla. It's like the new thing for kids. It's a sort of affordable toy to give your child, and they press a button and it lights up and it shoots bubbles out. Well, every kid wants one of these as soon as they see it. And I saw this little boy begging his mother for a bubble wand in the store the other day. Mommy, please, can I have a bubble? All I ever want is a bubble. You can give me this bubble wand as my Christmas and birthday present. All I want is this bubble wand. So he gets the bubble wand. About 10 minutes later, I'm outside and I see this kid just sitting on the stoop of the street. And his mother's like, why don't you play with your bubble wand? He's like, I hate it. I don't want the bubble. Because once he'd done it for like 5 minutes, he was bored. So yeah, give the kids the money. And then if they don't want their bubble wand, too bad.
Too bad, right? Oh, you know what? You know what? This is something that nobody knows about, right? I mean, Disney heads know, but and something that I've been big and really in favor of since I hate to stand in line, which is rope drop.
Rope drop.
And I try to explain this to people, and my brother came with his kids. My brother hates theme parks, okay? And he came with his kids, and I'm like, you have to get up at 6 o'clock in the morning and you have to be at Disneyland before it opens so you can be there for rope drop. And he got very grumpy.
Rope drop, yes.
I am out. Why do I have to do that? And he just fought me on it all the way.
Yes.
And then and I finally browbeat him into being there, you know, well before the park opens. Because here's the thing, when you go to the park, you think, oh, it opens at 8, so I'll get there at 7:59. But no, you know, by the time you park and then you walk and then you get there, I mean, that adds 45 minutes.
Yeah, it can add up to an hour. And
Right?
and they oftentimes open that front gate 15, 20, even 30 minutes before the park. So they don't let you in to roam around the whole park, but they let you onto Main Street. You can get a Starbucks, and then you can get up closer to the front of that rope. And it's a real rope drop is a real rope that they pull across Main Street to keep you from entering the rest of the park. And it's true. But here's the thing about rope drop. So at rope drop, everybody wants to run straight to the biggest ride. So they're running to Splash Mountain, Space Mountain, Indiana Jones. You can't run to Rise of the Resistance because you already have to have a boarding pass for that. My tip is run to the things that are going to be busy later in the day. Run to Fantasyland and ride Mr. Toad and the Peter Pan ride and the new Snow White ride, which will have long lines later in the day with little shade. And rope drop is a great time. You can do all of Fantasyland in the first 20 minutes of your visit if you're at rope drop. But if you go later in the day, that would take a couple hours.
You know what? I think that's a fantastic tip, because here's the thing about Fantasyland, you know, it was one of the original lands and it's still very charming and everybody wants to do it, but the rides are slow compared to the new rides. And as a result, they get really backed up. And, you know, for what is not a very sophisticated ride, you will wait in line an ungodly length of time. So yeah, it's a very good idea to just go there and you know, get rid of it, get it out of the way.
Marla, I'm going to spill the tea a little bit because I've been to Disneyland with you, and an ungodly amount of time to you is very different than an ungodly amount of time to me, because I am willing to wait in the line for 30 minutes, maybe even 45 minutes before I start to grumble, unless the sun is on me, and then I'm very vocal. But Marla, after 5 minutes, will say to you, oh, is this line ever going to move? When are we going to be on this ride? So we're very different in how we approach the park.
Okay, that's true. That's true. And you know, I was actually military. I was literally in the U.S. Army Reserve. My father was in the Air Force. My whole family is a military family. So hi to all the military people out there. But I have to tell you that I've had enough of hurry up and wait. You know, I don't want to wait. And also, you know, I'm 65 years old and, you know, I have a life-threatening disease, for those of you who don't know. And, you know, I just can't be waiting around for stuff. I need instant gratification. So that's why I'm excited.
Instant gratification, Marla. That's what'll be on your tombstone. Why did it have to take so long?
So what? Okay, so like if you want to go to Disneyland, so the best way to get instant gratification is rope drop. And I hope you understood rope drop. If you didn't understand it, You get there like before the park opens. You bought your ticket online before you go there. You have it in your hand. And you get there before the park opens. They let you go up Main Street because there's no rides on Main Street. You get all the way to Main Street, but you can't enter any of the lands where the rides are until they literally drop the rope. There's an announcement overhead, and then they drop the rope.
And they scream at you, please don't run. I'm going to drop the rope, but don't run. So
And
Marla, what happens when they drop the rope?
Yeah, and everybody runs, but don't run.
But don't run. There's really no need to run. And I'd add to that, on top of going at rope drop, try to pick a day that'll be less crowded, like a weekday in the off season. You'll have a better time. If you're visiting the hottest days of the year, August, September, be prepared to be unbearably hot in the middle of the day, and then be prepared to be cold that evening, because that's how our weather is. So Disneyland has its good seasons and its bad seasons, and it also has its high weight seasons and its low weight seasons. So visit on a weekday in the off season. Also, make your restaurant reservations 90 days in advance. So you can make your restaurant reservations up to 3 months in advance. And it's really important, because if it's a hot day and you want to get out of the sun and sit down somewhere and have a nice meal that's not a burger from some window, then you really do need to make your reservations exactly 90 days before your visit. And all of those things will really help make your visit better. And then in the near future, Disney Genie comes out and it'll change some of this, but we'll write about that. Marla will talk about it. I'll talk about it. And we'll let everybody know how to get the most use out of the new system.
So I don't know, maybe nobody has any questions. Maybe we're just, maybe they're all asleep, or,
We had a ton of questions, but alas, we're at the end of our time.
No, the horror.
But anyway, you can follow Marla and read about her coverage, and you can also always go to Dusty at mousechat.com.
Micechat, MICECHAT.com.
It's in the chat, folks. Thanks so much. Dusty, please come back. Geez, Marla.
It was a lot of fun. And Marla, I always love seeing you. So let's have another little journey soon. We'll visit all the parks, and then we'll do lots of these shows about them.
That sounds great. I love
lots of gossip coming up, folks.
Yay. Thanks, both of you. Thanks, Marla. Thanks, Dusty.
Thanks,
and
Samantha.
by the way, yeah, it's such a pleasure. See you again. And by the way, folks, I just wanted to tell you, you can order Marla's book online from any of your online booksellers, or go to one of our favorite indies, which is Once Upon a Time Bookstore. And you can get signed copies there. What else do I need to tell you? Speaking of books, join us next Friday, the 17th for Bookish with host Sandra Singh Lowe. We've got Henry Winkler, AKA the Fonz himself, as well as author Lynn Oliver, and the one and only Daniel Handler, who you might know as Lemony Snicket from A Series of Unfortunate Events. But before that, on Wednesday, the 15th, there's Garden Party with our own gardening expert, Joshua Siskin, talking about what you need to do for fall planting. To register for that, and for everything else, go to scng.com/virtual events. You're also going to be able to remember to find a copy of tonight's show there too. Thanks again, and we'll see you next time.